Time now for campus craziness. The news out of Evergreen State College in Washington really is a metaphor for what's happening on the left more broadly. It is bizarre. So bizarre, it feels like a Twilight Zone episode where up is down, black is white, and howling mobs represent free speech and tolerance. Sadly, of course, this is not television. This week, an Evergreen student told trustees how she is vilified and silenced solely because of her race. Keep in mind, this is happening in America. Meanwhile, a professor claimed that Evergreen simply isn't extreme enough. That's the real problem. Watch.
My name is Mackenzie, and I'm a current student at Evergreen. I have been to several meetings to speak. I've been told several times that I'm not allowed to speak because I'm white. This school seems to focus so much on race that is actually becoming more racist. Because I choose not to focus on race, I've actually been labeled a racist and a white supremacist. And if anyone took the time to actually know me, it's not true at all.
The work toward equity and inclusion was and is not proceeding fast enough for our students and frustrates them and staff and faculty as well. I want to advocate that each of us, all of us, strategically and thoughtfully choose to listen, find, and tell the stories of what happened, stories that understand social change to be messy and righteous, difficult and necessary.
That's what fascism looks like in 2017. John Daniel Davidson is a senior correspondent at The Federalist, and he joins us now. John, part of me feels a little guilty for giving so much airtime to this insignificant college in the Pacific Northwest, but I think it's important because I think it says something much broader about what's happening to the American left. This is a pretty familiar series of steps we're watching. Do you recognize this?
Absolutely. This corresponds to a pattern we've seen playing out all over the country over the last couple of years in Berkeley, in Maine, for coast to coast. I mean, even at Mizzou, a couple of years back, it started with Black Lives Matter protests. And Evergreen is a special case, but as you say, it's kind of a canary in the coal mine. Evergreen has been kind of a kooky liberal college for decades. But what's happening there is kind of the logical consequence of left-wing radical theory playing out on college campuses all over the country.
So I think one thing that professor, the one who described violence threats as, quote, righteous, one thing she said I think does point to the truth of what's going on here. She said, in effect, our students have been told to expect that things are going to change much faster than they've actually changed. Isn't that part of it? Students have been taught that the country is irredeemably racist and that they have a responsibility to make everything perfect immediately. If you tell kids that, why should you be surprised when they riot?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also a consequence of these students being very sheltered. It's not just college. They've gone through high school, in most cases, without ever really being challenged. So their biases have been confirmed by their teachers from a very young age. College, which is supposed to be a time when you expand your horizons, when you challenge your assumptions, has never really happened for them in that way. They've had their biases confirmed and reinforced. And as you say, they've been told that change needs to happen really fast and a specific kind of change. And when they encounter people they disagree with, they kind of lose their minds. And that's what we see in Evergreen. That's what we've seen at Middlebury College. That's what we've seen at UC Berkeley. It's a big problem, and it comes from kind of a shelteredness in college students today.
For sure. But you're also, I think we've reached the stage in the revolution where it's starting to consume itself. The snake is eating its own tail. I mean, there are no conservatives at Evergreen. The guy they were mad at, Professor Brett Weinstein, is a totally sincere, I think, principled, but progressive. He's a lefty. He's not a Trump voter. He's not a right-winger in any sense. And now they're trying to kick him off campus. So, are you struck by how this is kind of the left versus liberals?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly as you say. This is sort of the left eating its own tail, which is, as we say before, canary in the coal mine. This is the logical consequence of this kind of rhetoric. If you're taught that speech is violence, then you will resort to violence to suppress speech you don't like.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening here. It's very anti-enlightenment. We spent centuries getting to the point where we don't burn people at the stake for the things they say.
Right.
And that's exactly what's happening here.
No, that's really nicely put. And how would you like to run the Democratic Party with all of these people in it? Boy, I'd be afraid. They've unleashed forces they can't control, and I'd be afraid if I were them. John, thank you for that. That was insightful.
Thanks.